I find that offensive. Wow, you find that offensive? Well, that means I should stop criticizing you. That means I should stop bringing up these issues. Well, that's how Christians seem to feel about it. When you talk about their faith in Jesus Christ, when you call them irrational, when you call creationism bogus, they get offended, and they tell you about it. They feel the need, the urge, to confront you and say, "Sir, ma'am, I find that offensive. You should stop making fun of me." So I think I am granted the right to list a few things that I find offensive. I find the Inquisition offensive. I find the Crusades offensive. I find the parties of God destroying Iraqi civil society and drawing the U.S. into a decade-long war offensive. I find suicide bombing very offensive. I find genital mutilation highly offensive. I find the subjugation of women pretty offensive. I find battery acid being thrown on women's faces for refusing to marry men decades older than them highly offensive. I find the notion that non-believers will be damned to an eternity of suffering highly offensive. I find the notion that priests, mullahs, and rabbis have access to truth that we non-believers can't access highly offensive. I find many things offensive. I find the Catholic Church telling young homosexuals that they are not made in the image of God and that they will burn in hell forever highly offensive. I find the Orthodox Jewish prayer that goes, "Thanks for not making me a woman," very offensive. I find St. Paul telling women that they should be silent in church very offensive. I find the Mormons saying that black people are inferior to white people very offensive. I find theocracies offensive. I find the Pope, who has said that although AIDS as a disease might be bad, condoms are worse, very offensive. I find a Danish cartoonist being murdered simply for depicting Muhammad very offensive. I find the fatwa issued to Salman Rushdie for writing a book very offensive. I find witch hunts offensive. I find superstition offensive. I find irrationality offensive. I find bigotry and intolerance offensive. I find Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, even Buddhism offensive because they all of these religions claim to know things, claim to have witnessed things that no one has, and I find that very offensive. I find lying to children offensive. I find telling children that they will burn in hell for not accepting mythology highly offensive. I find women being told that they can't drive, that they can't have the same access to education, to fundamental liberties in Saudi Arabia incredibly offensive. I find witch doctors offensive. I find astrology offensive. I find the keeping of truth from children in fear that they will learn about the world incredibly offensive. I find all these things offensive. But you don't see me going around crying. You don't see me going around complaining. Just sitting here, and I'll answer your questions. But I'm not going to go around saying, "Sir, ma'am, I find that offensive. Don't talk to me about it." I'm open to discussion. I'm open to arguments. Just bring forth evidence. Thank you.